Once you understand yourself, turn your attention now to the child and heighten your observation skills. Over the next several videos, we are going to learn how to observe our child and what questions to ask as we are watching our child to know the answers that will help your homeschool. For example, this is what it means to survey the job. We've used this analogy of the handyman quite frequently throughout this series. And here is the child, our job site. It's time to take your measurements. It's time to see what the child knows, what he doesn't know. We want to understand the development of the child. We want to understand what is happening on the inside so that we can address those needs and teach. We call it homeschooling. I like to think of it as custom schooling. There's no education in the world anywhere that a child will have subjects custom tailored to his needs, not only his interests, because there are things that a child needs to know that he's just not interested in. But to understand his needs, when he holds back, how to encourage him to engage. We're going to discuss learning styles. Now, one danger as we talk about learning styles is to think that if a child isn't reading, well, he must be an auditory learner. Instead of realizing, while he may be an auditory learner and that is his strength, we also need to encourage him to read and to use his visual functions, kinesthetic functions as well. So there are so many areas to this. The first day I began homeschooling, I set out with one mission: not to teach my child in that first month, but just to watch them, to observe them. Let me tell you what happened, because it was profound to me. It was a profound moment as a parent. I set out all the manipulatives. I had my most beautiful books. I had a classroom set up. And we went down into this room just to enjoy each other, just to be in this space. And I noticed what things each child gravitated toward, what things they pulled off the shelves, and how they began interacting with it. The things I observed in each of my children in that moment informed how I would proceed with homeschooling the rest of the year. I discovered that my oldest child, who I always considered the smart one, was actually very insecure in many of his abilities. He was not a strong reader. He was fantastic at mathematics, but more in a building sense. He knew how pieces fit together. He knew how to do Legos, but actually doing abstract work on a paper, he had a lot of insecurities. My daughter, who was kind of eccentric and kind of quirky, we thought maybe she wasn't the sharpest knife in the drawer. I never realized before what a grateful learner she was. She wanted to read. She wanted to write. Any moment that I spent with her, teaching her a new skill, she ate it up. And these are things that any new homeschooling parent needs to look at before they begin embarking on a journey of education. You need to know what your child really needs. So we're going to head in. We're going to sit down with our Montessori expert, Maggie Radzik, and we're going to discuss the development of the child. We're going to come back here and we're going to talk about these learning styles. We're going to talk about personality types. We're going to head back out to do the offices of Virginia Vision Therapy, where we're going to talk with our professional, Dr. Todd Davis, who is an expert in developmental optometry. He's going to help us to understand how that homework battles are very often the consequence of a learning disability. And that by tweaking your discipline methods, you are not going to solve the problem. You have to address the underlying challenges which is causing the anxiety in the child. And by doing this, you will be giving a great gift to the child who is struggling with a learning disability. That is how we observe the child, understand the child's needs, and then put it all together to understand how each child is interacting to make up the whole family. One final point that we need to discuss right here before we begin is the all-important grade levels. How do you evaluate your child's grade level? In a pass-fail structure that we are hardwired to think of school as, where there is a test at the end and that says if you are going to go on to the next level or be humiliated and have to stay behind. These grade levels are very important. Not so in the homeschool. In the homeschool, we like to look more at the skill level. Can your 8-year-old multiply and do long division, but struggles to read? What grade is he in? Well, you can very easily order an early reader phonics program for this child and 5th grade math for the same child. You are able to break it up. That's why I would discourage most parents from getting an all-inclusive package program, because you won't have that flexibility to let a child soar and go as far as his skills will take him, and slow down without any embarrassment and allow him to lay strong foundations in the other areas which he may be weaker in. Incidentally, he may be weaker in some areas because of a undiagnosed learning disability, and once you identify that and you catch up on that, he's going to come up in grade level. So don't worry too much about the grade level. One tool that is very helpful for this is a series of books. It's called the Core Knowledge Series, and each book is titled Everything That a 5th Grader Needs to Know, or Everything That a 3rd Grader Needs to Know. And in each little book, you have a syllabus of all of the academic milestones that each grade level should reasonably be aiming to accomplish. This is a fantastic guideline that will help you to avoid big gaps in the whole. Every child is going to have gaps in their education. That's just normal for all of us. We all look back on our education and there's something that we say, well, I never learned Roman numerals until I was in high school, or who knows what it is, that it's natural for these things to happen. But we want to avoid the big gaps, and the series of books is good to help the teacher have these milestones no matter what method you are going by, to make sure that you're hitting all these things. And if you see that your 5th grader is struggling with something that he should have learned in 2nd grade, don't panic. As it's been said, there are no educational emergencies. When you're homeschooling, you just fill in that gap. No stress, no worries. Remember, this is not an indictment on your child's character if he doesn't know something. It just means that you have another gift that you have to give him now instead of later. So let's move on. Let's head on out and let's take a good long time to observe our child.